Those in favor say aye. Those against say no.
Aye.
Question time. Continue.
B88.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I will reply to both PQs B88 and B91 as they pertain to the same subject matter. Mr. Speaker, sir, concerning PQ B91, I wish to inform the House that government has already decided that with regard to the utility bills, both Central Electricity Board and Central Water Authority will waive surcharge on unpaid bills during the period of confinement. An additional moratorium of up to 4 months will be provided for payment of bills following the lifting of the lockdown. There will furthermore be no disconnection of supply during the moratorium period. In addition, to alleviate the financial burden, especially on low-income families, both the Central Electricity Board and the Central Water Authority will consider payment facilities to customers on a case-to-case basis. The above special measures taken in the context of the confinement have already been communicated in the press. I wish to also highlight that these measures are applicable to all consumers and not only those residing in the red zones. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to PQ B88, I have to inform the House that following the COVID-19 pandemic last year, regulations were made by my ministry for new tariffs to be charged for the supply of electricity under the social tariff 110A for domestic consumers and under tariff 215A for small commercial consumers, that is, businesses only. The social tariff 110A is applicable A, to households receiving government social allowance under the Social Register of Mauritius for Child Allowance, B, socially vulnerable households registered by the National Empowerment Foundation, and C, CEB domestic household consumers registered under tariff 110 and 120 having minimum consumption as defined under the regulations. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to highlight that for consumers benefiting from this social tariff 110A, the prices are an average of 46% less for the first 85 kilowatt hour per month as compared to the normal domestic electricity tariff rate. Mr. Speaker, sir, as stated earlier, the new electricity tariff 215A was introduced in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic last year to alleviate the financial burden of small commercial businesses. Small commercial consumers benefiting from this preferential tariff pay 10% less than the normal tariff. The above tariffs will be applied up to July 2021. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, thank you. In regard to the waiver of surcharge and additional moratorium, which was extended last year during COVID-19 pandemic, is the Honourable Minister aware that Statistics Mauritius, in its report ending September 2020, monitoring the socio-economic effects of COVID-19 on Mauritian household. The next one is due in a few days. We will know the exact situation. Whether in there, albeit and notwithstanding the facilities that is being extended this time again, it is reported that about 39% of households had difficulty in the payment of their electricity bills on time due to financial constraints, while 30% had problems to pay their water bills.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm not aware of that report, but I can say that with regard to the regulations which were published last year in order to alleviate the financial burden of those at the lower rung of the ladder, I can inform the House that around 65,000 consumers of the Central Electricity Board benefited from the facilities that came with the regulations that were published last year with regard to the pandemic that we were facing.
Is the Honourable Minister aware? Sorry, I'll rephrase my question. The moratorium and the extension, does it not tantamount to a catch-22? And I will explain myself why. Is the Honourable Minister aware that a few days ago, so that means 17th of March 2021, the Central Electricity Board has issued a communiqué, so to speak, warning consumers that pendant la période de confinement, it's a French communiqué, les clients résidentiels du CEB ont une forte tendance à consommer plus d'électricité et les tarifs du CEB sont de nature progressive, allant de 3,16 € à l'unité pour les premières 25 unités, augmentant progressivement pour atteindre 8,77 € l'unité si l'on consomme plus de 300 unités. De ce fait, because people, they stay at home, students learn online, they use computer the whole day, people work from home, they on the fan because it's very hot. Does that not amount to a catch-22? Because people will think that they are having great facility from the government, but in fact, they will have to pay the bill more in a few months' time, to their surprise, as the Statistics Mauritius has itself, so to speak, find out for the period terminating September 2020.
Mr. Speaker, sir, if I may put it this way, the reply that I'm going to make is in line with what the Honourable Member has stated in his question. But the thing is that he himself, he said, and we are all aware of that it is a progressive tariff. The higher we consume, the higher is the kilowatt hour. For example, for the 110A, for the first initial 25 kilowatt hour, it is at 1 rupee 74, and then when it rises afterwards to 25, the next 25, it increases to 2 rupees 43. Now, what happened during the last lockdown was that CB estimated bills were calculated on the average consumptions of the 12 previous months, whereas in this case, it will be based on the 2 previous months only, that is for the month of January and for the month of February. And this will lower down the consumption. Again, Mr. Speaker, so the House needs to know that following what was said and following complaints that were made last year, I understand that effectively the actual consumption had increased by 35%. But after going through an exercise, the CB had to adjust 192,000 bills and adjusted their payments representing around 8 million rupees. And this was due because the payment was based over a period of 12 months, first, and secondly, with the progressive tariff. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether, in the light of the press conference he gave on 7th December 2020, in the wake of the presentation of the Central Electricity Bill and the Electricity Bill, that, and I quote, il y a une possible baisse de tarif de l'électricité avec l'entrée en vigueur de l'Utility Regulatory Authority, mais tout dépendra de la conjoncture internationale, which make big headlines, yeah? Can I ask him whether, in the light of this undertaking, so to speak, that he has taken towards the nation, he has initiated discussions with the URA with a view of reviewing tariff, let alone for the people who are, of course, for the people who are at the lower rungs of the ladder, like I mentioned in my initial question, but in terms of cross-subsidization that is going on right now in CB, and which the small and medium enterprises does not benefit at all on this, so to speak, cross-subsidization of the CB.
Mr. Speaker, sir, first of all, with regard to the press conference I did make that statement in the presence of the Utility Regulatory Authority, but it will be for the URA to decide. But as of today, the URA has not yet started to exercise its function. For the moment, the tariffs will continue to be set by the Central Electricity Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to, I said, small commercial consumers, whereby you have also SMEs falling under that small commercial consumers and benefiting of tariff 215A. I stated in my main reply that they did, during the last confinement, pay 10% less than the normal tariff. So there has been a decrease in their electricity consumption during the last confinement period.
Next question.
B89.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we have taken cognizance of press reports from various sources, including from Al Jazeera, dated the 3rd March 2021, stating that the Saudi Ministry of Health will not allow entry to pilgrims who have not been vaccinated. Our mission in Riyadh has not received any official correspondence to this effect. Nevertheless, the whole issue of the organization of Hajj 2021 will be discussed with the Saudi authorities at the next opportunity. I am informed by His Excellency Shaukat Ali Sudan, our ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who is currently on an official mission. He is slated to meet with His Excellency Dr. Abdul Fattah Mashat, the Deputy Minister in charge of Hajj, next week in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The whole issue of the organization of Hajj 2021, including the sanitary conditions, the quota of pilgrims, etc., will be the subject of discussions between Ambassador Sudan and the Deputy Minister. Sir, given the ongoing sanitary situation worldwide, it may be generally expected that there will again be a restricted quota allotted per country.
Yes, thank you. The Honourable Minister, thank you, has quoted from Al Jazeera. Allow me to quote from Haramain Sharifan, which is a very reliable source of publication from people who are in the know, in the domain of Hajj organization. And I quote, "The Ministry of Health has decided to require all external pilgrims wishing to perform Hajj this year to obtain 2 doses of WHO-approved vaccine for COVID-19. The Hajis will be required to receive the 2nd dose, forthcoming Hajis, will be required to receive the forthcoming dose of vaccine before arriving in the kingdom at least 1 week before Hajj. And if it is decided by the kingdom to hold Hajj this year for external pilgrims, Mauritian Hajis will be leaving Mauritius towards the end of June. So can I ask the Honourable Minister whether the discussions that will be held in Jeddah with the roving ambassador, technical issues like, first of all, the WHO-approved vaccine, because Mauritians are being shot with vaccines right now which are not yet approved, namely Covaxin, and if so, how, the Honourable Minister has mentioned the quota, which is very important, because the ICC here, which falls under the Ministry of Arts and Culture, has a priority list of Hajis that will be going this year, because it's first application, first go, that these people will be notified to be vaccinated with the appropriate vaccine now, because second dose is done after 3 months. And end of June, if we work backwards, is today, because we are now in the almost beginning of April. Can this very serious matter be, Honourable Minister has mentioned next week, the roving ambassador will be, I think it should be now, because from what we see from photos that is being circulated, he's now roving around in Dubai, when in fact he should be going to Saudi Arabia to discuss this more important issue.
Speaker, sir, the question of the honourable member is double-loaded. With regard to whether, in substance, the vaccines will have to be approved by the World Health Organization or not, I appreciate the information that is being provided by the honourable member. But as I repeat, Mr. Speaker, so what we have on our side in terms of information, and I can also cite a circular signed by the health minister, quote, the COVID-19 vaccine is mandatory for those willing to come to the Hajj and will be one of the main conditions for receiving a permit to come. Nevertheless, let us not preempt issues. As I said, all this will be made clearer. And I suggest, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I said, let us leave the whole issue of the organization to be the subject of discussions between the ambassador and the deputy minister, as I said earlier on. Of course, we will welcome all suggestions made by the honourable member and made by everybody, because this is a very serious matter. What was speaking of, Mr. Speaker, sir, we will be open and take on board the suggestions made by the honourable member or anybody in this House, for that matter.
Mr. Speaker, following the questions that were put by honourable member just now, can I impress upon the Minister, since vaccinations, most of them have to be done 2 vaccinations, and there has to be, for some of them, 12 weeks between each vaccination. Therefore, time is of the essence. Could I therefore impress upon him, Mr. Speaker, to ask that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs not wait on this matter for His Excellency the Ambassador to look into the matter, but to be proactive, since time would be of the essence, and if ever there needs to be World Health Organization approved vaccination, as put by Honourable Osman Mohamed, that this be given priority, since we all know that we are having a huge issue with the procurement of vaccination approved by the World Health Organization.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I totally agree. In fact, at the level of the ministry, we are also monitoring the situation. In fact, even this morning, I had a conversation with the ambassador, raising up again this issue we are debating now. I agree with what the honourable member said.
Speaker, sir, last Tuesday, I raised the very same issue at adjournment time. And the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness stated, and I quote from Hansard, Mr. Speaker, sir, WHO approved vaccine for those who will be traveling. Obviously, if we have the recommendation from the Saudi government authorities, we are going to make available those vaccines as approved by WHO and the Saudi authorities. So last week, the Honourable Minister of Health took a commitment that for pilgrims, there would be WHO-approved vaccine. But today, the Honourable Minister seems to be saying something different. Now we're going to negotiate with the Saudi authorities, so may we know which is which?
What I understand the Minister of Health to have said, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that in case the vaccines will have to be approved by the WHO, then what he said would be valid. So in case, as I said, the information that we have at the Ministry is, what has been mentioned is only to be vaccinated. And whether it should be approved by the WHO is a matter which we will clear in the days to come.
Next question.
I have only one
Last
question.
one.
Yes, please. Being given that the Honourable Minister has said this himself that this is a very important matter, can I request him to request his colleague, the Honourable Minister of Arts and Culture, because the question is addressed to him, I convey the message through the Minister, to start discussions at the level of the Islamic Cultural Center, so that they commence la machinerie, because we have 3 months before to start getting people who are on the priority list there to start getting vaccination. Otherwise, the list will be haywire. It's upside down, because people from bottom, because they've been vaccinated, will be given priority over people who are on the top of the list, because these people will not be able to go because they have not been vaccinated. Can I impress on the Honourable Minister of Arts and Culture, through you, because my question is addressed to you, to do this?
I will liaise with the Honourable Minister,
Next question.
Minister of Culture.
B90.
Mr. Speaker, sir. Following the retirement of the former Director, Health Services, responsible for public health on 5th August 2020, arrangements were made for assignment of duties at the level of Director, Health Services to the most senior medical practitioner pending filling of the vacancy. In accordance with the scheme of service, the post of Director, Health Services is filled by selection from amongst medical practitioners reckoning at least 10 years of service in a substantive capacity in the ministry and possessing a postgraduate qualification of at least 1 academic year of study in any clinical specialty or public health or primary health from a recognized institution. In addition, incumbent should also reckon at least 5 years cumulative experience in managing a specialized unit, a medical unit, a hospital, or a health region. Normally, for long periods, assignment of duties is made on the basis of seniority. Hence, the interest of medical practitioners, as specified in the scheme of service, was thought. Dr. Vidi, Regional Health Director, the second most senior in the medical cadre, expressed his willingness to be assigned the duties of Director, Health Services. Approval of the Public Service Commission was sought accordingly and obtained. Dr. Vidi has been assigned the duties of Director, Health Services by the Public Service Commission with effect from 5th August 2020. In the meantime, the post of Director, Health Services has been advertised by the Public Service Commission on 24th February 2021, with the closing date on 16th March 2021. However, in view of the confinement on 10th March 2021, closing date for submission of application would be extended. Mr. Speaker, sir, Dr. Vidi holds an MBBS as well as an specialist qualification in anesthesiology. He also holds a doctorate degree in business administration with a specialization in healthcare management. Dr. Vidi has occupied the post of Regional Health Director of Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital from 2015 to 2016, Flak Hospital from 2016 to 2017, and SSRN Hospital since the year 2017, and up to his assignment as Director, Health Services.
Dr. Bidi, Dr. Dina Singh, is the doctor who is replacing Dr. Vasantrav Gajadhar at the Ministry of Health. Mr. Speaker, sir, can I ask the Honourable Minister, in the light of what he said last Friday on radio, in respect of the lump sum of Dr. Vasantwal Gatadar, as a former civil servant himself, that when people retire from service or from any other entity earning a lump sum money, this should go beyond critics. And for the sake of people who are benefiting from
Mr. Speaker, sir, this question...
And would he...
The jurisdiction of this question is elsewhere.
Would he consider present apology, Dr. Gatadar, and to all those people who have been offended?
No. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is not a question related to this, whatever he has been asked.
Next question. You have one, sure?
I have. Yes. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, why is it that Dr. Bidi is not on the platform of the NCC, the platform that is on TV every day? Because all we have on the platform are part-timers.
Don't explain your question. Yeah. You ask a question, let him answer.
He's the person who is in charge of public health in this country.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm on the platforms, that's enough.
Order. Before I move to the next question, the table had been advised that PQB 78, PQB 113, 117, and 126 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B92.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that there are, as at date, 3 senior educational psychologists, 31 educational psychologists working on full-time basis in the 4 educational zones as follows. Zone 1, 12 educational psychologists and 1 senior educational psychologist. Zone 2, 8 psychologists, the senior most one acting as senior psychologist. Zone 3, 1 senior psychologist and 6 educational psychologists. Zone 4, 1 senior educational psychologist and 5 educational psychologists. With regard to Rodrigues, I'm informed that there are 2 educational psychologists working on full-time basis. I wish to inform the House that they are supported by 26 educational social workers. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Health and Wellness Directorate of my ministry, along with the National Education Counseling Service, took measures for sound empathy for the psychosocial comfort of our children during the lockdown. The educational psychologists of my ministry addressed a total of 223 cases during the lockdown period in 2020. I'm advised that these were behavioral cases categorized as cases related to oppositional behavior, family conflicts, aggressive behavior, emotional distress, suicide ideation and planning, bereavement, persistent low mood, and domestic violence. Cases of children displaying signs of non-school related anxiety, trauma, emotional dysregulation, withdrawal, hyperactivity, and school-related stress were also tackled. Mr. Speaker, sir, despite the lockdown, these children and their parents were provided with help, support, guidance, and counseling by the Health and Wellness and the NECS of my ministry. Interventions made included counseling by phone with students and responsible parties, motivational counseling, guidance to establish effective study plans, referral to other institutions as well. Follow-up of the cases was done through the phone conversations with the students and their family members. Online working sessions were also conducted, whereby parents were explained how to design activities to help manage the behavior of children at home and how to help their children with their studies during the lockdown periods, amongst others. With regards to Rodrigues, I am informed by the Chief Commissioner's Office that no cases were attended individually during the 2020 COVID-19 lockdown. However, the educational psychologists did radio interventions for students on the following topics: how to spend time during the lockdown and to endure lockdown positively, sensitization on mental health, and enhancing family bond. Pupils were also provided with emergency numbers which they could contact for psychological support. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am further informed that the educational psychologist in Rodrigues also did e-counseling with around 15 pupils and parents. Upon resumption of school, counseling had resumed to support pupils and parents. It is to be highlighted that the monitoring of cases referred to educational psychologists was continued during the lockdown period, and cases referred during the same period were also monitored after school resumption in July 2020. Furthermore, audio recordings and videos were also prepared by the NECS to support students and their parents during the lockdown period. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part B of the question, since the start of the current lockdown till date, the educational psychologists have supported a total of 142 students. A brochure to guide students on how to tackle their exams with a more serene and calm state of mind and how to cope with exam stress during the lockdown has also been prepared by the department. The brochure includes coping strategies like breathing mindfully, practicing gratitude, and letting go of negative emotions. A support service for students sitting for examinations during the lockdown period is being provided by the educational psychologists along with sensitization programs on the MBC. Though Rodrigues is not under lockdown, I'm informed that formative and supportive sessions are currently being done by the educational psychologists for grade 6 pupils.
Honourable Minister, I would like to know the number of cases that you have mentioned, 223 during the last lockdown, 142 cases during the present lockdown. Now, how do we come to these cases? Because we have students who will do follow-up during normal time. Has there been an increase in the number because of the lockdown? And how did these educational psychologists find out additional or new cases during the lockdown? What was the methodology and mechanism?
Mr. Speaker, sir, during normal time, students at school are identified and are referred to the psychologist through the system. However, during the lockdown period, the students contacted was probably the NEC, and from there on, the support was provided.
This is a very sensitive issue that we are talking. We know that children who are in need of assistance normally, generally, come from very vulnerable backgrounds, from backgrounds where there may be domestic violence, abusive parents, parents addicted to illicit substance.
Put your question.
So how did these educational psychologists reach out to these students?
Mr. Speaker, sir, as I've just stated, these students may have contacted the NEC through the social workers as well. But I must say that we cannot generalize saying that this type of support is provided solely to people coming from vulnerable groups. Children from all walks of life do require support, and the support is provided to one and all on request, either through the system, through the teachers who identify them, or by the parents or the students themselves contacting the NEC.
Merci. L'honorable ministre peut-elle nous dire si elle est au courant que selon le School Safety Task Force de 2018, le ratio recommandé selon les États-Unis est de 1 professionnel en psychologie pour 500 élèves ou 1 school counselor pour 250 élèves pour un accompagnement efficace. Or, actuellement, le ratio selon ses propres chiffres est de 1 accompagnement, un educational social worker pour 3663 enfants. Donc peut-elle nous dire qu'est-ce qui est prévu par son ministère pour améliorer ce ratio? Merci.
Monsieur le Président, nous sommes d'accord que le chiffre, le nombre, est toujours, si on peut arriver à augmenter le nombre de soutiens que l'on offre aux élèves, c'est toujours welcome. Mais bien sûr, compte tenu du budget, compte tenu de ce que nous avons là, comme ressources, nous devons y dépendre. Seulement, c'est vrai que nous avons toujours, et à chaque année, demandé une augmentation, et nous recevons chaque année quelques additional officers. So, bien sûr, nous allons essayer d'avoir encore plus, mais la valeur du jour, nous dépendons de ces professionnels et nous travaillons avec eux, avec le soutien des educational social workers as well.
Last supplementary.
I would like to know whether all these educational psychologists, even the seniors, did they receive a work access permit during this lockdown or the previous one?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir, because as I've just mentioned, that they've been working through phone and e-counseling.
No, it's okay. Next question. You have 4 questions.
B93.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to point out at the very outset that the project referred to is in fact the Early Digital Learning Program. It is a national initiative undertaken with the collaboration of the Indian government, which is being implemented since 2018 as part of the educational reform. The specific aims are to induce a paradigm shift in the teaching-learning process. I wish to highlight that this project also involves the development of digital contents that are front-loaded in the devices. With regard to Part A of the question, 51,133 digital tablets have been allocated to pupils of grades 1 to 4 in state and aided primary schools in the Republic of Mauritius. The figures for the different grades in Mauritius are as follows. Grade 1, 13,639. Grade 2, 11,227. Grade 3, 11,656. Grade 4, 11,590. In Rodrigues, the number of tablets provided is as follows. Grade 1, 723. Grade 2, 719. Grade 3, 782. Grade 4, 761. A total of 36 pupils in the island of Agaliga have also been provided with the tablets. With regard to Part B of the question, the capital cost of the project amounts to USD 20 million, out of which an amount of 14 million US dollars was provided by the Government of India. I wish again to seize the opportunity to thank the Government of India for this very generous support in improving the digital learning ecosystem in our schools. With regard to Part C of the question, my ministry is in presence of reports related to 2 evaluation exercises. The first one was carried out internally by the MI, and the second one by the University of Mauritius with the support of the World Bank at the behest of my ministry. These evaluation exercises were primarily meant to be formative in nature. The MI's first research phase focused on teachers' capabilities to integrate technology in the classroom, their classroom management skills, and the modes of learning, including personalized learning, pair and group work with tablets, the use of specific apps, as well as drawing and writing tools. The MI found the results highly encouraging and promising. The University of Mauritius, for its part, has recently submitted its final report. The report states, and I quote, "The use of tablets in the classrooms deeply motivated pupils. They were more engaged, lively, and participative. Most pupils indicated that they preferred the tablets over the traditional textbooks, and it was further observed that the use of multimedia tablets increased the attention span of the pupils. The multimedia-based lessons and exercises provided the pupils with audiovisual stimuli, which contributed greatly to the high engagement observed in most classrooms," unquote. The report goes on to say that the program has been off with a good start in that it has succeeded as per its objectives in incorporating digital media in the classroom. However, the report also recognizes that teachers still require further training to translate meaningful change in pedagogical practices, and that headmasters should equally be more engaged in the follow-up of the project. The House would wish to know that my ministry has already embarked on a series of training sessions for headmasters and school inspectors so as to help them better monitor and support educators in the successful implementation of the project. Yes, thank you.
I am not going to question the 2 studies carried out, the formative evaluations mentioned by the Honourable Minister. But this is in a strict contradiction with the audit report.
This is debate.
My question is coming. We are told in the audit report, Honourable Minister, that children in 14 out of 40 schools visited could not use the tablets. And here you're saying that it has a good start, you're satisfied. You need to review that. There is a serious problem. My question is, are you satisfied with that situation?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like the Honourable Member to just see at the timing of the report. When was the report done, and whether all the tablets were already distributed at that point in time? And obviously, there are cases that we have noted where, due to some delay in the installation of electric wires, there was a delay in the use of the tablets. But this does not in any way hamper the project. We obviously are sad that we could not start in those 14 schools at the same time, but the delay was not a very long one. And as soon as the installations were done, the students were able to use their tablets.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can I just ask the Honourable Minister, with regards to the School Net 2 project, which is also relevant to this question because it pertains to internet connectivity, they can confirm that 81.7 million rupees has been paid to a contractor, and that at this stage no connection has been done at the secondary schools, and the money has not been recovered from the contractor.
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me make it very clear. We are talking about 2 different projects. The EDLP is a project being carried out in primary schools, and all primary schools have high-speed connectivity today. It's not, the question is not related to the secondary schools. It's a primary school.
Is the Honourable Minister aware of the problems associated with this digital tablet because of lack of space, and they cannot be upgraded, and they have very limited use? Because it's the program are preloaded, so once the next year they can't use it?
No, that's not true. We do upload and front-load certain programs in the tablets, and the tablets are used for different classes. So every year we've been procuring new tablets for the next class. So the tablets procured for grade 1 are used for grade 1 students, and the next group, the next batch goes for the next group. It's not the case.
Thank you. Is the Honourable Minister prepared to lay on the table of the National Assembly the reports, the 2 reports she mentioned?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would just mention that it's a formative report, that we are implementing a new project, and the ministry wanted to make sure that the project is being implemented successfully. And this project, this report, is meant for the internal use of the ministry and was made at the request of the ministry for our internal assessment and to ensure that the project is implemented according to our aims and objectives.
Will the Honourable Minister confirm that as at now, in all primary schools, because on 24th September 2019, there were primary schools where tablets and projectors were still idle. Today, when we are talking, has the situation been remedied?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to bring some clarification to that issue. When we say that tablets are idle, we cannot expect students in grades 1 to 4 to sit in class a whole day using tablets. Tablets are meant as a supportive device. And we must not forget that the psychomotor development of the child has also to be done within the classroom. And we don't expect students to sit with their tablet throughout the day. Next, if ever one particular teacher at one point in time is not using it, this doesn't mean that the next teacher coming in class would not be using it. And our aim is absolutely not to get students to sit with a tablet throughout the day.
Next question.
B94.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to part A of the question, out of the 12 academies, one, namely MGI Muka, is already a co-educational school with all necessary facilities. Actions have already been initiated by my ministry to complete all infrastructural works related to the conversion of the 11 single-gender schools into co-education institutions before the resumption of the next academic year in 2021. The main infrastructural works involve the provision of separate toilet facilities, additional sick rooms, and changing rooms.
Will the Honourable Minister confirm that all of the academies, at the resumption of studies, next school calendar, students will be able to take subjects like food and nutrition and design and technology?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we all agree that the new setup with co-educational schools is such that we would allow all students to take all the subjects offered. We know that because of COVID, some of the works have been delayed, but we expect that all specialist rooms would be ready by the end of the first term, and this would give time for the students to start the subjects, start the theory before going on to practical work.
Request the Honourable Minister to cross-check the information, because according to me, in some schools, specialist rooms are not ready, and students have been advised not to take that particular subject or subjects.
This is not possible, Mr. Speaker, sir, because the exams are on right now. Students' results will come afterwards, and then only students will be identified to move on to the academies. Now, the second thing, because the Honourable Member is asking me to ascertain, let me say that out of the 11 academies, in 8 of them, all the infrastructural works have already been done. I'm talking about 11 because MGI is already ready. I'm talking about 8 academies where the works have been completed. And I know that for 2 academies, work is in progress, and we are expecting that all specialist rooms would be ready by the end of the first term.
Honourable,
Last question.
it is a case of clear discrimination then. If for academies everything has been done, I'm referring to a letter, I'm referring. Kindly note that for combination of subject for grade 10 for the academic year 2021-2022, approval has not been given to any regional girls' school to offer design and technology or design and communication, or to any regional boys' school to offer food and nutrition. My question is, isn't it a clear case of discrimination against the students of these regional schools as compared to the academies?
Mr. Speaker, sir, this is not correct, because we don't even know who are the students. Students are not asked to determine right now what are the subjects that they're going to take. We have asked all students to sit for the exams, we'll select the best students, and then once they are admitted to their college, they will opt for their subjects. Right now, no student has been asked to decide upon the subjects to be taken once they are admitted in the academy. So this information is not correct.
Next question.
B95.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the National Land Transport Authority that there is currently no direct bus service from Cap Malheureux to Grand-Bay-La Croisette via 20 Road. In fact, presently, buses of the Triolet Bus Service Limited operating along Route 83, Saint-Antoine to Solitude via La Croisette and 20 Road cover only part of 20 Main Road over a distance of about 1 kilometer. The recent construction of several residences and commercial buildings along 20 Road have prompted requests for public transport service thereat. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the Triolet Bus Service Limited has made a request for a new bus route from Cap Malheureux to Port Louis via Vingt-Pieds Road, Superbu, and La Croisette. The company has already been advised by the NLTA to submit its application for consideration against the prescribed fee. Now the application will now follow the established procedures.
You know from the Honourable Minister how long it may take before we see the first bus starting to serve that route?
Well, it depends how long the company will submit its application, Mr. Speaker, sir, which will be considered, of course, by the NLT.
Next question.
B96.
Mr. Speaker, sir, DNA sequencing is a process of determining the nucleic acid sequence to study genomes and the proteins they encode. The information obtained allows health and laboratory personnel to identify changes in genes, associations with diseases, and phenotypes. Scientists use genomic sequencing to identify the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19, monitor its changes over time into new variants, study the effects of these changes on the characteristic of the virus, and measure its impact on health. Genomic sequencing also helps in establishing strains of viruses in circulation. Previously, there was no equipment to carry out the sequencing test in Mauritius. Consequently, my ministry was sending samples to the Francis Crick Institute, UK, and the National Institute for Communicable Diseases in South Africa. The results obtained for incoming passengers from October 2020 to December 2020 and January 2021 to 5th March 2021 showed 5 South African variants and 2 UK variants. Moreover, results for tests carried out from 5th March 2021 onwards did not show any variant of concern, that is, UK, South Africa, or Brazil, Japan. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry has now acquired a next-generation sequencing equipment at the cost of 6.5 million rupees. The equipment has been delivered on 24th March 2021. The equipment is presently being installed and will thereafter be commissioned. 14 out of 15 reagents and consumables have been acquired, and the remaining one is expected to reach Mauritius early next week, as informed by the supplier. Online training will be given to the staff of the Molecular Biology Department on the use of the equipment. It is expected that the equipment will become operational by mid-April 2021.
When the COVID-19 phase 2 hit Mauritius on the 5th March, due to the lack of laboratory sequencing tests in Mauritius, his ministry sent 40 samples of PCR tests in South Africa. When negative came after 3 weeks, the question is what would have been the consequences for the whole country if there was any variance in those samples, and can the Honourable Minister tell the House the preparedness plan he envisaged to take for the future by his ministry?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to the preparedness plan, I have a question. I'll be giving the answer in due course. And in terms of the variants, but Mr. Speaker, sir, this question is clearly related to presence of variants in the PCR sample. How can I reply to a question related to the preparedness plan of the resurgence of COVID-19?
Next supplementary.
Can the Honourable Minister tell the House how much has been spent having these sequencing tests been done in South Africa?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't have the information with me. Obviously, I'm going to table that information.
Last supplementary here.
Sir, Mr. Speaker, I see from information that has been provided at some stage by the Honourable Minister himself, or at least together with his good friend sitting around him during the press conferences every other day, that at some stage for the detection of variants within the samples provided to a lab with the authorization of his ministry, the Ministry of Health, to a lab called Abiolabs in Mauritius. Why is it therefore that since this particular lab has detected variants therein, why is it therefore that those results are not accepted by his ministry when it is his ministry that authorized that lab to carry out the test?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will make a statement on this subject during the allotted time for statement.
Next question.
B97.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to the ongoing administration of COVID-19 vaccine to the population under the National Deployment Vaccination Program, medical and nursing practices standards are duly observed prior to administration. Prior to the National Deployment Vaccination Plan for COVID-19 vaccine, a comprehensive training program was mounted for all staff, including medical and nursing, who are involved in the program. The latter encapsulate modules on regulatory preparedness, planning and coordination, vaccination strategies, human resource management, vaccine safety monitoring, strict compliance with cold chain, and management of adverse effects following immunization, injection safety, disease surveillance and evaluation, among others. Some 700 staff have been trained for this purpose. Additionally, a virtual training of trainers program was also organized by Serum Institute in India and WHO. The latter comprises sharing of lessons and benchmarking pertaining to country experiences, a COVID-19 vaccine rollout. Therefore, much emphasis is laid on the importance and types of vaccines, along with the underlying protocols and standards. On top of that, in order to ensure the crystallization of this program, 2 simulation exercises were carried out, namely at the Registrar Building and at the Victoria Hospital. Let me also point out that the vaccination program has been largely catered by the Health Promotion Unit of my ministry, which has also been granted the Public Service Excellence Award 2020 edition, which is a commendable achievement and is in itself a testimony of our commitment to quality standards and excellence. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed that 2,487 PCR tests have been carried out on our health personnel from 27th March to date and are still going on. This figure covers our health personnel posted in our health institution throughout the island.
Monsieur le Président, l'honorable ministre est-il au courant que les signes vitaux qui comprennent au moins une vérification de la tension artérielle et la prise du pouls de la personne qui se fait vacciner n'est pas requise, malgré le service mis en place par son ministère à des fins de vérification d'informations et de données de santé de la personne en question?
Mr. Speaker, says a question.
La question est que est-ce que l'honorable ministre est au courant qu'il n'y a pas de vérification de la tension artérielle et de la prise du pouls de la personne qui se fait vacciner, malgré le fait qu'il y a une équipe qui est là pour prendre les informations, les données de santé, etc., des personnes qui viennent se faire vacciner?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we are the guiding principle. We are doing all according to the guiding principle, and there is no need of, to have all the vital check. So far, we have already done more than 163,000 vaccination, and we have been able to manage it properly. I'm sure honorable member will agree with me that he has seen how the vaccination is being done in the different vaccination centers, and that has been done properly and has been appreciated as well as by members of the other side of the House.
Monsieur le Président, malgré ce que vient de dire l'honorable ministre, nous sommes tous, enfin je sais qu'il y a une bonne partie des honorables membres de cette Chambre, au niveau de la majorité ou de l'opposition, on s'est fait vacciner et on sait comment ça se passe. Donc, puisqu'à mon avis, je peux ne pas être médecin, mais le bon sens me permet de poser cette question. Puisqu'à mon avis, certaines pratiques de base ne sont pas respectées. À mon avis, à mon humble avis, le ministre peut-il rassurer la population qu'il existe, qu'il y a un service de réanimation bien équipé dans les centres de vaccination, autres que les hôpitaux et les centres de santé, pour parer à toute urgence?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think that honourable member, when he has been vaccinated, he has seen it a well-dedicated team for the reanimation. I don't think that I have to give more information on this, because this has been all the requirements and the training that has been done, especially for the rehabilitation.
Yes, sir. One issue which I wanted to ask the Minister, Mr. Speaker, says as follows. Since he has expatiated upon a whole program of training that was also delivered online and also training for trainers, etc., has part of this training at all included the possibility of including in an equation which would be when, at what pace this vaccination is going on, at what pace does he foresee this training, whether it's helped his ministry to know how fast this vaccination will go on, and when approximately, at least, will vaccinations be over in order to achieve herd immunity?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in my reply for the PQ last week, I've given the details of the information sought by the honourable member.
Next question.
B98, please.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I shall start by expressing my deepest sympathy to the family and friends of Mr. HR. Mr. Speaker, I'm informed by the Fédération Mauricienne de Triathlon that further to the tragic death of Mr. HR, the treasurer, who was acting as chief technical official during that competition, has given a statement to the Case Noyal police station on 11 February 2021. A police inquiry is therefore in process.
Monsieur le Président, 2 morts en moins d'1 mois. C'est une évidence que quelque chose ne tourne pas rond dans l'organisation des compétitions au sein de cette fédération. Le ministre, de ce fait, peut-il nous dire si son ministère a demandé un audit dans le mécanisme qui est mis en place par la Fédération de triathlon pour l'organisation de ces compétitions? Et sinon, pourquoi?
Oui, effectivement, Monsieur le Président, donc à la suite de chaque accident qu'il y a eu, nous avons demandé un rapport complet à la Fédération mauricienne de triathlon. Et après le deuxième accident, donc j'ai même demandé à la Fédération de venir pour une réunion au ministère. Donc nous avons eu une réunion le 22 février, où il y avait différents membres de la fédération qui étaient présents, ainsi que certains athlètes qui avaient participé aux 2 compétitions respectivement, où nous avons pu prendre connaissance de tout ce qui a été fait le jour, allons dire, du malheureux accident du 7 février.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Could I ask the Honourable Minister whether he can inform us? I know he said that an inquiry is ongoing and that he's even at some stage asked for a report. Why is it that, at least at the level of his ministry, he can give us the answer? Why is it that for such events, it has become the general rule that no proper encadrement is provided either by the police or by members of his officials of his ministry to ensure not only that there are emergency services that are present there whenever required, or to ensure, as in this particular case, that the route was proper and safe for the holding of such an event. Why is therefore his ministry absent when it comes to securing the life of people participating in such sporting events?
Le Président, l'honorable membre fait complètement fausse route. Si je prends le cas de la compétition du 7 février 2021, la fédération avait fait la demande et avait sur place 4 policiers, 2 motards et 2 officiers de police. Et la fédération avait 30 officiels de la fédération, des personnes qui ont été formées pour gérer ce genre de compétition. Et laissez-moi rappeler à la Chambre que ce sont les fédérations qui organisent leur compétition. Bien sûr, ils demandent l'aide et le soutien du ministère, et nous veillons à ce que les fédérations, dans n'importe quelle compétition, mettent en place tout ce qu'il faut par rapport à l'aspect sécuritaire. Et toujours par rapport à la compétition du 7 février, le St. John était présent et il y avait aussi l'ambulance du St. John qui était présent. Et d'ailleurs, c'est l'ambulance qui a transféré notre athlète vers l'hôpital Quentin. Donc, pour résumer, je redis, l'honorable membre fait complètement fausse route. Les mesures de sécurité sont là. La fédération a pris toutes les dispositions nécessaires. Le ministère, il y a les officiers qui suivent toute demande par rapport à des compétitions qui sont organisées par les fédérations. Et comme je l'ai dit aussi, donc nous avons fait appeler la fédération à la suite de ce malheureux accident pour venir lui donner une explication et aussi s'asseoir et voir qu'est-ce qui peut être amélioré, évidemment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House on the number of athletes who participated in the competition and in which categories?
Alors, Monsieur le Président, pour cette compétition, alors attendez, il y avait 131 athlètes pour la compétition du 7 février. Alors, il y avait 131 athlètes et c'était de différentes catégories, allant de youth jusqu'aux vétérans. Donc, youth, junior, senior, aussi bien que les vétérans.
Honorable Tour.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, so my question has already been answered.
Monsieur le Président, malgré de ce que vient d'affirmer l'honorable ministre, peut-il nous dire s'il est en présence d'informations à l'effet que l'autobus qui a occasionné l'accident n'est venu se garer sur un lay-by sur la route qu'après le 8e tour du circuit, qui comportait, je pense, une dizaine, alors que ce n'était pas autorisé. Et de ce fait, il y a eu une absence de vigilance des policiers présents sur les lieux pour supposément assurer la sécurité des participants.
Monsieur le Président, allons attendre l'enquête policière, déterminer exactement ce qui s'est passé ce jour-là. Et bien sûr, à la suite de l'enquête policière, les différentes autorités concernées vont prendre les mesures qu'il faut.
Next question.
99.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to parts A and C of the question, I wish to inform the House that several measures have been put in place for the safety of hospital staff as follows. Hospital staff have been sensitized on the COVID-19 pandemic, the modes of transmission and infection control through presentations and videos. They have been trained in the correct donning and doffing of protective gowns, equipment, and their proper disposal. COVID-19 vaccination sessions exclusively for hospital staff have been carried out in our regional hospitals. Access to the hospital premises is controlled at the main entrance and temperature checks are being performed on all visitors. Sanitizer dispensers have been installed at numerous locations on the hospital premises for both visitors and hospital personnel. Thermal cameras have been installed in the waiting area of accident and emergency departments of regional hospitals to screen all incoming patients for fever. All units have been provided with non-touch thermometers to screen visitors, patients entering the unit's wards for fever. Bed distancing and regular cleaning of wards every 4 hours with antiseptic disinfectant is being observed to prevent any cross-infection. The number of visitors allowed per patient in the ward during visiting hours has been reduced from 2 to 1 to limit the risk of spread of infection. A flu clinic COVID testing center has been set up to avoid patients attending the hospital with flu symptoms or fever mingling with patients and staff from other units. The ward is kept as isolation ward for admission of patients with symptoms suspected to be COVID-19, so as to keep them separate from patients with other symptoms, diseases. Signages have been affixed at strategic points over the hospital premises, informing both the staff and the visitors of preventive measures such as wearing of face masks, regular washing of hands, and social distancing. Markings have been made on floors and chairs in waiting areas of all units to help maintain social distancing in the hospital. Regular cleaning and disinfection of all corridors and other areas within the hospital premises are being done. Staff were also informed of the fact that 70% of infections between staff members are likely to occur in common rooms where they usually rest and take their meals. My ministry took necessary measures to segregate the meal time and rest time. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards to Part B of the question, personal protective equipment such as face masks, disposable gloves, PPE gowns, goggles, overshoes, face shields, and nurses' caps are provided to staff working in close contact with patients in flu clinics, accident and emergency departments, in isolation wards, and quarantine centers as recommended by the World Health Organization. Moreover, all staff are provided with surgical masks daily. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm tabling our protocol for the rational use of personal protective equipment.
Speaker, but unfortunately...
No comments. Put your question.
No, but unfortunately, a hospital is closed in Suivez. So I want to know from the Minister, what is the date? When was these measures applied? Is it after the closure of Suivez Hospital, or was it done prior? Because if all these precautions were taken in all regional hospitals, c'est incroyable qu'un hôpital est fermé après toutes ces dispositions que le ministère ait prises. Donc, est-ce que le ministre peut informer la Chambre quand est-ce qu'on a pris toutes ces décisions? Est-ce que tous les staffs concernés dans toutes les regional hospitals sont concernés par le safety equipment?
Mr. Speaker, sir, all these measures that I have announced, they are measures dated since the last year outbreak of COVID-19. And what
is happening now?
Mr. Speaker, that's the reason. Since last year, we have been able to curb the curve, and we have been able to control the virus. I'm sure this time also we'll be able to do so. Concerning what happened at Suivez Hospital, Mr. Speaker, sir, this has happened. We still don't know whether a patient has brought the infection and infected the staff or what is it. At this point, it is not right to comment what been the services, what been the precaution that all the hospitals are already doing.
Merci. Le ministre peut-il nous dire si les Regional Health Directors ou son ministère ont reçu des complaintes concernant une éventuelle politique de 2 poids 2 mesures, avec d'un côté le personnel médical et de l'autre le nursing staff et le personnel non médical. Et si oui, quelles ont été les actions prises par son ministère pour s'assurer d'un même traitement pour tous et s'assurer qu'il n'y ait pas de politique de 2 poids 2 mesures?
Mr. Speaker, sir, such complaint we haven't received it at the ministry.
Last supplementary.
Yes, thank you. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether, with regards to the implementing sanitary measures to increase protection, whether he would consider increasing the regular interval of verification for PCR tests for all staff working within hospitals at closer regular intervals, and also the possibility of home self-test kits, as is used in the NHS in the United Kingdom.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you, Honourable Member, for this question. In fact, the Ministry is conducting PCR tests to all staff working in the different settings, and at the same time, we'll be repeating the test every 10 days, because staff are the most exposed to the risk of infection, and obviously the Ministry is already implementing repeated PCR tests for the staff.
Next question. You have one?
Merci. Protéger la santé physique de nos frontliners est primordial, mais préserver leur santé mentale l'est tout autant. J'aimerais savoir si le ministre est au courant de la pression énorme que subissent nos frontliners et si des actions seront prises par son ministère pour leur apporter un soutien psychologique. Quelles actions sont en train d'être prises concrètement et si il considérera l'implémentation d'une hotline spécialement dédiée aux frontliners pour leur apporter un soutien psychologique.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Sir. The Honourable member has rightly pointed out that the Ministry has already made available a hotline for the staff so that they can be on phone conversation to the psychologists who are on call on a daily basis, and 2 psychologists in different regional hospitals are available to cater for any psychological issues for the staff.
B100. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to the situational analysis of the impact of COVID-19, from a gender perspective, I wish to inform the House that post-confinement in 2020, my ministry has sought technical assistance from the United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP, to carry out a situational analysis on the impact of COVID-19 from a gender perspective. We were then informed that the UNDP had already commissioned a study on the socio-economic impact assessment of COVID-19 in Mauritius, and the gender perspective would be taken on board. On the 2nd of March 2021, the UNDP released its report. The report was developed with the technical leadership and financial support of the UNDP as part of the advocacy efforts of the wider United Nations system led by the resident coordinator to support the socio-economic response and recovery efforts to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this report provides an initial assessment of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic in Mauritius. From a gender perspective, the report highlights, inter alia, the following: an overview of the trends across the lockdown and its aftermath reveals a nuanced picture. At first sight, during the lockdown period, female employment did reveal an even more important decline than male employment as at May last year, 2020. However, subsequently, female employment increased considerably by 27% between May and June 2020, and even between June and July 2020. The severity of the impacts known to be happening elsewhere still appear to have been mitigated in Mauritius. The successful handling of the crisis and the relatively short stalling of the economic activities and the recovery which the country has subsequently witnessed has to a large extent cushioned the impacts in terms of female unemployment, except for some sectors which have been particularly vulnerable to the lockdown, such as retail and tourism-related activities. The findings and recommendations of the report are currently being scrutinized at the level of my ministry, and corrective actions in consultation with relevant stakeholders will be initiated as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Could the Minister state when she proposes to come forward with concrete measures?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have just replied that the report came out on the 2nd of March 2021. The recommendations and the findings are being studied at the level of my ministry, and I am certain that these recommendations and findings will enable my ministry to make good, informed decisions, policy decisions, but they are still being analyzed, and the concrete results will come after this analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Could the Minister state how much time she will take to examine the findings?
I cannot provide a time frame, Mr. Speaker, sir, because it is a report that is being studied. It is an important report with important recommendations. So it is being studied, and the measures will be applied when we have studied the recommendations and findings. I cannot provide you with a time frame.
Yes, thank you. I understood from the...
No, you have
understood.
so many questions. Let me give you.
Could the Honourable Minister provide us, since she said that the report was ready almost a month ago, could she at least provide us with the names of those people who are studying the report, and how many times have they met, and when do they propose, at least approximately tell us a time? Not to be exact, but how many times have they met, who are they, and approximately?
They are the officials, Mr. Speaker, sir, they are the officials of my ministry, of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family Welfare. If you wish for me to, there is not a set committee that is sitting and studying the findings. They are the senior officials of my ministry, taking into account the gender unit, who has a head, and the administrative unit. And like I said, there will be consultations held with all the relevant stakeholders before we can apply the measures.
Last supplementary, if you have one.
Thank you. I understood from the original reply of the Honourable Minister that the exercise that she intended to do could not materialize for reasons she has given.
No, I didn't.
And that now she's touched base with the UNDP, and that the study monitoring the socio-economic effects of COVID-19 on Mauritian household is going to take in care of what the Honourable Minister intended to do.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think the Honourable Member did not... Oh, is that the question?
Too long, this foundation...
Finish my question.
It's your question.
So, can I ask the Honourable Minister whether that study that UNDP is doing, and I have with me the one ending September 2020, which does not touch the issue of gender at all, whether the one that is going to be produced, and she has a copy right now, is comprehensive enough on what she intended to do originally. Because it is based on rapid, just to put some element, because the study, if I got it right, is based on rapid continuous multi-purpose household survey done over the phone.
Not at all, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think there is a bit of a breakdown in communication. Either I am not explaining myself too clearly, or my honourable colleague has not understood. No. I'm fairly certain it's the latter. But to go back to replying to your question, I had in this very House itself said that there will be a situational analysis of the impact of COVID-19 to be carried out with a gender dimension taken into consideration. And I reiterated that post-confinement last year, in 2020, my ministry had gone ahead and sought the technical assistance from the United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP, to carry out that very situational analysis, only to be informed that UNDP are already conducting an analysis and a report has been produced by them. So that there would have been a duplication of work. We went to the UNDP to get the situational analysis carried out for the technical assistance. They were already carrying out the same analysis. I hope that answers your question, Honourable Member.
Next
Thank
question.
you. B101, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, in my intervention on Budget 2020-2021 on the 9th of June last year, I mentioned that my ministry will come up with a blueprint on the successful achievement of women entrepreneurship in the post-COVID era. My ministry will be hosting les Assises de l'entrepreneuriat féminin during the current financial year. Logistics are being finalized to this effect. The objectives of these Assises would be to provide a platform for national consultations on women entrepreneurship and the issues associated with that, with a view to adopting a participatory approach geared towards the elaboration of the blueprint. The Assises will be an opportunity to bring together public and private sector professionals, representatives of parastatal bodies, the Development Bank of Mauritius, associations of women entrepreneurs, and other key stakeholders of entrepreneurship development, so that we can assess the situation of women entrepreneurship development in Mauritius and then come up with a blueprint. The blueprint would comprise strategic measures to scale up efforts to address challenges faced by women entrepreneurs, as well as recommendations for sustainable development of women entrepreneurship in our country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister provide details on the composition of a team working on the blueprint, and can we know the action plan and the strategy of the Ministry? Thank you.
The team working on the Assises de l'entrepreneuriat féminin are obviously officials of my ministry. We have a dedicated National Women Entrepreneur Council who is giving a very helping hand to that effect. Remind me the second part of your question. Action plan. Okay, this is the action plan. The action plan starts with organizing the Assises of the l'entrepreneuriat féminin, and the blueprint will déboucher of this Assise, along with the consultations with the stakeholders I've mentioned in my original reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister state who is chairing the National Women Entrepreneur Council, and does the chairperson has competencies to drive the council, particularly in the context of COVID-19?
The council is, yes, Mr. Speaker, so the council is currently being chaired by Dr. Robin Morgan, who happens to be the permanent secretary of my ministry. She has just retired, and the composition of the board is being reviewed, and a new chairperson will shortly be appointed.
Next question.
B102.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Master and Registrar that for the current COVID-19 lockdown period, that is for the period 10th of March up to yesterday, 29th of March, there were 6 applications for protection orders, and that all 6 applications were entertained by the relevant courts, and the courts have issued interim protection orders in respect of all 6 applications.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister state whether he is aware that the district courts of Rosil and Pamplemousse have not entertained application of IPO?
Well, I can only reiterate what I have just stated from the information provided to me by the Master and Registrar. If the Honourable Member has any specific case and the reference, this has to be, in view of the nature of the applications, this has to be communicated privately, and then I can inform the Honourable Master and Registrar accordingly.
Okay, last one. I will provide information to the Minister. Le ministre pourrait-il indiquer à la Chambre qu'en est-il de la problématique de relogement du conjoint violent au vu des obligations de confinement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the House will appreciate that this question relates to a policy matter which should be directed to the relevant ministry.
Next question, Honorable Mayer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Will the Minister, excuse me, it's question B105.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. With regard to part A and B of the question, I'm informed by the Road Development Authority that the project for the construction of the A1, A3 link road was awarded to Gamma Construction Limited on the 28th December 2018. The works, which started on the 18th February 2019, were completed within 681 days. This period includes an extension of time of 206 days due to the March 2020 lockdown caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The extension did not involve any additional costs. The project was completed on the 28th December 2020, and the road was opened to the public on the 23rd January 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regard to part C of the question, allow me to highlight that the construction of such a road on this kind of terrain is a complex endeavor, and it constitutes an oversimplification to just suggest that it is merely identifying an alignment, clearing of the alignment, and the subsequent asphalting or resurfacing of same. Far from that, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, it involves various intricate components and stages, including surveys, investigations, and tests. This is added to the fact that there may be other potential issues which may have to be considered and addressed during the actual implementation of the project itself. Each of these components, Mr. Speaker, sir, involves diligence, expertise, and of course, costs. Mr. Speaker, sir, the project for the construction of the A1, A3 link road is based on a design and build contract. Additionally, due to its specific challenging nature, the project comprised the following components. First, design and associated geotechnical investigation. Second, excavation of a huge amount of earthworks, which is over 128,500 cubic meters, and the construction of high embankments over 40,000 cubic meters. To give this house an additional indication, this would be equivalent to filling 51 Olympic swimming pools. We literally had to displace half a hill, so to speak. This is neither an easy nor an inexpensive feat, Mr. Speaker, sir. The other component are namely dual carriageway plus shoulder and drainage, 2.7 kilometers of single carriageway plus shoulder and drainage works including 13 box culverts, 1 roundabout, and 2 major signalized junctions. Mr. Speaker, sir, the contract for the A1, A3 link road was awarded by the Central Procurement Board after due diligence for an amount of 783,304 rupees, inclusive of VAT, and there has been no cost overrun. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm tabling the cost breakdown of the project.
Will the Minister inform the House about the percentage of the total amount that consists the preparing of the soil?
Mr. Speaker, sir, quite a difficult question, but I'll try to answer. They may laugh, yes. The amount of work that we had to do to prepare the terrain actually to make the road was almost 50% of that total cost.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to know, je voudrais savoir du ministre, est-ce que le projet A1, A3 Link Road font partie du Road Decongestion Programme de la LDA?
Tout à fait, Monsieur le Président. Ce projet fait partie de cet ensemble de projets qui constituent la vision de notre Premier ministre pour cette île Maurice moderne qu'il veut bâtir pour les générations futures.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has there been any additional work to protect surroundings inhabited zones from runoff rainwaters?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, there is an interface between NDU and the RDA where we are building drains all around that region, which is, in fact, an flood-prone area that has been declared so by the LDA. So there is drainage work. It's still ongoing, being done by the RDA, and the RDA did whatever necessary, whatever has to be done to avoid runoff water from that road in order it doesn't fall into that morcellement that is low-lying. Thank you.
Will the Honourable Minister please inform the House if the contractor who was awarded the contract was actually the lowest during the tendering exercise?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, this contract is evaluated by the CPB, is allocated by the CPB, and they will normally, yes, go by the lowest tenderer or the one who responds who is technically responsive. But in this case, it was the lowest and technically responsive.
Last supplementary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The project, the road that we are talking, is it the same famous road of 3 km aller, 3 km retour?
I don't know if maybe it's their time to joke. Maybe why as a kid they haven't played enough, so they're using that August Assembly to do so.
Time over. We appreciate the sense of humor. The table has been advised that the following PQs have been withdrawn. PQ B118, B119, and B125. At times we need honorable members like Honorable Amyamya to make us loaf.
Motion.
Motion.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
The question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye and those against say no. Ayes have it.
Statement by ministers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to make the following statement with regard to the accreditation of His Excellency Mr. Shaukat Ali Sudan, and which was subjected to a PQ during the last sitting of the Assembly. On the 7th January 2020, I repeat, on the 7th January 2020, His Excellency Mr. Shaukat Ali Sudan was appointed as the Ambassador of the Republic of Mauritius to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with residence in Riyadh. He was also accredited as non-resident ambassador to the following countries: United Arab Emirates, the State of Kuwait, and the Kingdom of Bahrain. In December 2020, the government decided that Ambassador Sudan be appointed as roving ambassador with residence in Mauritius to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the above-mentioned countries, as it was considered that the ambassador would be in a better position to coordinate with all stakeholders with respect to crucial projects, as well as strengthen our relations with countries in the Gulf region. Consequently, as from the 25th January 2021, Ambassador Sudan is operating as Ambassador of Mauritius accredited to the countries named above with residence in Mauritius. He has been allocated an office at the ministry with a full staff complement. Ambassador Sudan is currently on official mission to the United Arab Emirates and will proceed to Saudi Arabia as the accredited ambassador of Mauritius to these countries to pursue issues pertaining to bilateral relations and cooperation. He is also expected to meet with His Excellency Dr. Abdul Fattah Mashad, the Deputy Minister in charge of Hajj, next week in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to discuss the whole issue of the organization of Hajj 2021, including the sanitary conditions, quota of pilgrims, and other issues, and other related issues. I wish to reassure the House that Ambassador Sudan was at no point declared persona non grata by any of the above-mentioned countries, nor was he recalled by the government. A communiqué was also issued by my ministry on 25th March 2021 conveying the above. Our embassy in Riyadh is fully operational and is headed by a chargé d'affaires ad interim. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to make a statement with regard to the matter raised by the Honorable David at adjournment time at the sitting of Tuesday, 23rd March 2021, on wastewater discharge witnessed at sea in the region of Pointe-aux-Sable on 9th March 2021. I am informed by the Wastewater Management Authority that the location mentioned relates to the discharge point at sea from the sewer outfall at Débarcadère at Pointe-aux-Sable. There is an existing old sea outfall pipe from Pointe-aux-Sable wastewater pumping station that was previously used to discharge wastewater coming from the lower Beaubassin and Coromandel regions to the sea. However, as from year 2007, the Pointe-aux-Sable pumping station stopped discharging raw wastewater continuously into the sea as it was upgraded. Consequently, the pumping station pumps all incoming wastewater to Montagne-Jacot wastewater treatment plant for treatment through a pressure rising main. Nonetheless, the old sea outfall pipe is being kept as a contingency measure only in case of major breakdown, overflow, or major maintenance at the Pointe-aux-Sable pumping station. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm further informed by the Wastewater Management Authority that to improve the operations of the pumping station and following odor nuisance reported by the inhabitants living in the vicinity thereof, the Wastewater Management Authority has awarded a contract for the installation of an air treatment system at the pumping station, that is for odor control, in order to complete outstanding works to cover the inlet part of the pumping station. On 9th March 2021, the appointed contractor had to empty the inlet chamber to install a steel grating to cover it. To be able to attend to this work, the inlet chamber had to be temporarily emptied. The works could only be performed by diverting incoming wastewater through the old sea outfall pipe leading to the sea for a temporary period, as there was no other alternative to divert the incoming flow elsewhere. The works were promptly completed on the same day, and all incoming wastewaters to the pumping station pumped to Montagne-Jacot wastewater treatment plant. From 9th March 2021 to date, there has been no wastewater discharge through the old sea outfall to the sea, and all incoming wastewater to the Pointe-aux-Sable pumping station is being conveyed to Montagne-Jacot wastewater pumping station. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
Speaker, sir, I have a statement to make. There has been a lot of speculations lately concerning the presence of variants of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. I would wish, therefore, to shed some light on this issue for the benefit of the House. Genomic sequences, a process which allows researchers, health officials, and scientists to identify the virus, monitor its change process, understand how these changes affect the characteristic of the virus, and predict its impact on health. Genomic sequencing enables laboratories to establish strains of viruses in circulation and to identify the presence of variants. Mr. Speaker, sir, as there was no equipment to carry out sequencing tests at the Central Health Lab or in the private laboratories in Mauritius, my ministry was sending samples for testing to the Francis Crick Institute, UK, and the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, South Africa, which are both WHO collaborating centers. Up to now, these centers have detected 5 South African variants and 2 UK variants, all on incoming passengers. No variant has been detected among the local cases, which led us to say that there is no variant of concern, whether the UK one, the South African one, or the Brazilian one, which is circulating in the local transmission. The number of samples sent and their results are as follows. Francis Crick Institute, UK, 20 samples from imported cases for period October to December 2020, sent on 9th January 2021, and results obtained on 9th February 2021 showed 3 South African variants. The National Institute for Communicable Diseases, South Africa, 20 samples from imported cases during period January to February 2021, sent on 4th February 2021, and results obtained on 6 March 2021 showed 1 UK variant and 3 South African variants. Mr. Speaker, sir, in February 2021, one local laboratory made a request to my ministry for a special license to conduct COVID-19 PCR tests and sequencing. It informed that it had the necessary equipment and capacity to carry out sequencing tests. A site visit was effected at the laboratory by a team of Central Health Laboratory and recommended for approval to be conveyed for the local laboratory to carry out this test on an emergency basis. On 8th March 2021, following the upsurge of the second wave of local cases at the beginning of March 2021, 17 samples from local contamination were sent to this laboratory on 8th March 2021 for sequencing under emergency authorization. On 19th March 2021, the lab reported 7 UK variants from the 17 samples. However, 40 samples from the local cases of contamination, including the 17 samples sent to the local laboratory, were also sent to the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, South Africa, on 13th March 2021. The results obtained on 24th March 2021 do not reveal the presence of any variant. Moreover, PCR run at the Central Health Laboratory in these samples detected S gene, which also supports that these were not the UK variants. The director of the laboratory informed that the results were available since 15 March 2021, but same would be disclosed to the ministry only after signature of a memorandum of understanding by both parties. However, the laboratory communicated the findings of the RT-PCR test and gene sequencing to the Central Health Laboratory on 19th March 2021. On the other hand, the director of the laboratory revealed the result of the RT-PCR test to the press, specifying the presence of the COVID-19 variants on 23rd February and on 5th, 20th, and 24th March 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Central Health Laboratory has recently acquired a next-generation sequencing equipment at the cost of 6.5 million rupees to enable it to carry out sequencing tests. 14 out of 15 reagents have also been acquired for this purpose, and 1 reagent is expected to reach Mauritius early next week. Training of the staff of the Molecular Biology Department of the Central Health Lab on the use of the equipment, including on bioinformatics and interpretation of results will start by first week of April, and it's expected that the equipment will become operational by mid-April 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, Professor Tullio de Oliveira, Director of the KwaZulu-Natal Research, Innovation and Sequencing Platform, a research unit at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban, South Africa, who is working closely with this Africa Center for Disease Control, has proposed to donate a 1 nanopore sequencing kit for SARS-CoV-2 sequencing in Mauritius, which is expected to reach Mauritius by FedEx this week. This is a third-generation approach used in the sequencing of pathogen DNA or RNA without PCR amplification. In addition to being user-friendly for laboratory personnel, nanopore sequencing has the potential to offer relatively low-cost genotyping, high mobility for testing, and rapid processing of samples with the ability to display results in real time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I have my announcement. Honorable members, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition has given me notice of his intention to request leave to move for the adjournment of the Assembly to discuss a definite matter of urgent public importance, pursuant to Standing Order 11, namely the urgency to devise a national action plan to deal with the intensifying COVID-19 crisis. I have considered the matter. In my view, the matter to be raised does not meet the criteria to warrant the application for the following reasons. Firstly, the matter to be raised is not definite, inasmuch as it is couched in general terms. Secondly, in his notice, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition has signified his intention to raise a wide range of issues within that matter. Thirdly, the wide scope of the subject matter proposed to be raised, if moved successfully, is most likely to demand the passing of legislation to deal with it in an effective manner, which cannot be the subject matter of a motion under Standing Order 11. Having said that, I wish to emphasize that although according to the provisions of Standing Order 79, I'm not bound to give any reason in support of my decisions, yet I have considered that it would be in the interest of the House that I should do so. Moreover, my ruling does not preclude the Honorable Leader of the Opposition from raising the matter by some other means. I wish to inform the House that, pursuant to provision of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 11, had I ruled in favor of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, we would still have required the unanimity of the House for the latter to proceed with the motion. Thank you.
Speaker, would I be allowed to say a few words? May I motivate my motion?
Very few words, because I have already ruled. When the Speaker rules, there is a standing order. You cannot rule after the Speaker.
Then it's pointless.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaker, sir, I move for adjournment of the House to Tuesday, the 6th of April at 11:30 a.m.
The House stands adjourned. Adjournment matter specific.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, avant d'élaborer sur le contenu de mon intervention ce soir, j'aimerais mentionner que je vous adresse en tant que député élu de la République de Maurice et aussi en tant que citoyen engagé et un ami de l'île Rodrigue. Et loin de moi l'idée de politiser le contenu de mon intervention. Je vais commencer par vous citer quelques dates. 28 juillet 2010, date à laquelle l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies a décrété ce droit fondamental du droit de tout un chacun à l'eau potable. Monsieur le Premier ministre, l'eau, c'est la vie. Avoir accès à de l'eau propre et potable et la promesse ratifiée que nous avons prise pour tous les Mauriciens, les Rodriguais et les autres îles qui forment partie de la République de Maurice. Depuis de nombreuses années, Monsieur le Premier ministre, l'île Rodrigue souffre énormément de la production et la distribution d'eau. En mai 2015, l'Union européenne accorde plus de 13 millions à l'Assemblée régionale de Rodrigue pour des projets en relation avec les boreholes. Mais en octobre 2020, un montant d'environ 9,7 millions fut retourné à l'Union européenne parce que le projet fut jamais complété et aujourd'hui le problème d'eau reste entier. En 2017, un accord du consortium a été signé entre l'Assemblée régionale de Rodrigue et les promoteurs dont Mascara et Quadrant, coût du projet environ 26 millions. Mais, Monsieur le Premier ministre, encore une fois, le problème d'eau reste toujours entier à l'île Rodrigue. En 2018 et 2019, on a vu naître les stations de dessalement à l'île Rodrigue. Il y a eu 5 stations de dessalement. Malheureusement, on doute par rapport aux unités de dessalement, leur fonctionnement et leur approvisionnement en eau potable à l'île Rodrigue. Valeur du jour, l'eau est prise directement des boreholes et distribuée à la population rodriguaise. Certes, c'est filtré, mais pas chloriné et ni purifié, Monsieur le Premier ministre. D'après nos renseignements, ils y rajoutent de l'aluminium sulfate pour enlever les odeurs uniquement. Des mesures budgétaires ont été annoncées, certes. En 2020, le gouvernement régional a promis, et je cite, de l'eau une fois par semaine, promettant de doubler la capacité de production de 4 500 m3 à 8 500 m3. Citant encore une fois l'appui et l'aide de l'Agence française du développement pour un plan d'action pour le moyen et le long terme. Je ne vais pas citer toutes les mesures prises, annoncées dans le budget, mais n'empêche, je peux que constater qu'aujourd'hui, en 2021, le problématique d'eau reste toujours pareil à l'île Rodrigue, malgré toutes les mesures budgétaires annoncées par le gouvernement régional de l'île Rodrigue et l'assistance des instances internationales et par le gouvernement central ici à Maurice. En 2021, quelques jours de cela, au paragraphe 19 de son discours, le chef commissaire annonce résoudre le problème de l'eau comme un item fort de son budget. Il admet que le besoin pour desservir l'île Rodrigue en eau est de 18 000 m3, alors que la production actuelle est de 9 000 m3, soit le double de ce qui est produit actuellement. Annonce qui ne peut que réjouir les Rodriguais. Mais est-ce que cette annonce, tout comme toutes les actions que j'ai citées en haut, vont suffire pour résoudre le problème d'eau à Rodrigue? Monsieur le Premier ministre, le ministère pour Rodrigue tombe sous vos responsabilités ministérielles. Or, on apprend que le ministre des Finances va fournir un loan à travers la MASI d'un montant de 1 milliard de roupies pour pouvoir résoudre le problème d'eau à Rodrigue. Peu de temps de cela, il y a eu des manifestations à l'île Rodrigue. Des personnes sont descendues dans la rue parce qu'il n'y avait pas d'eau qui coulait de robinet, et ça depuis des mois. Des Rodriguais mécontents de la gestion et distribution d'eau qui ne se fait pas équitablement. Certaines régions sont favorisées, d'autres défavorisées, et d'après les manifestants, d'autres sont politisées, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Le but de mon intervention ce soir, Monsieur le Premier ministre, c'est de vous demander humblement que malgré les promesses budgétaires de l'Assemblée régionale, malgré les fonds injectés par les instances internationales, je note qu'on a échoué dans notre politique d'approvisionner de l'eau potable sur toute l'île Rodrigue. Je souhaite que l'île Rodrigue puisse avoir enfin accès à l'eau potable dans le robinet et que le gouvernement central s'assure que les 1 milliard de la MASI qui sera accordé à l'Assemblée régionale soient utilisés à bon escient. Merci.
Speaker, sir, water, of course, remains a very high priority for the development of Rodrigues. As the House is aware, the island has been facing an acute water shortage for decades. The increase in the standard of living and the socio-economic development have contributed to water stress situation. Improving water production, storage and distribution is therefore essential to enable the population to have access to adequate water for domestic and other uses on a more regular basis. The economic development of the island has always been a priority of my government. Hence, resolving the water shortage is a key issue. As we all know, Rodrigues depends a lot on its agriculture, tourism and related sectors, which require an adequate water supply. Mr. Speaker, sir, at paragraph 285 of the government program of 2015 to 2019, mention was made that the water problem in Rodrigues would be addressed with the construction of new reservoirs and planned exploitation of available resources. This is further reinforced by paragraph 186 of the government program 2020 to 2024, which provides that in order to increase water supply in Rodrigues, government will support the application of new technologies for desalination and storage. Since December 2014, my government has been working in close collaboration with the Rodrigues Regional Assembly to implement various measures and projects to improve water production, treatment and distribution. In fact, as from January 2015 to date, an amount of over 413 million rupees has been allocated to the Rodrigues Regional Assembly to target water sector initiatives in line with the following strategies: to increasing water production through seawater desalination projects, optimal exploitation of other available water sources, mainly boreholes, springs and dams, construction of new reservoirs and upgrading of existing ones, installation of wastewater treatment plant, encouraging rainwater harvesting, upgrading of the water distribution network, and reform of the water distribution management. As a result of measures taken, including the construction of 5 desalination plants and implementation of rainwater harvesting projects, water production in Rodrigues has increased from 4,500 metric cube per day to 9,000 metric cube per day. Mr. Speaker, sir, in fact, since 2017, 4 rainwater harvesting projects have been completed, which were co-funded by the Rodrigues Regional Assembly and the European Union. The projects aimed at improving rainwater harvesting at school level, public buildings, including hospital and household level. Mr. Speaker, sir, moreover, in view of improving the water sector in the long term, the Rodrigues Regional Assembly is working on the setting up of the Observatoire de l'eau in Rodrigues and the development of Rodrigues Water Resources Strategy and the definition of priority action plan, which aims at providing a sustainable solution to the persistent water scarcity. The Observatoire de l'eau, which is being co-funded by AFD and RRA, will enable the development of an information system to collect data from all sectors, share information, identify priorities, and facilitate decision-making and better resource management. In this context, the Rodrigues Regional Assembly has signed a memorandum of understanding with l'Office de l'eau of Réunion Island and the Ministry of Energy and Public Utilities for the setting up of the observatoire. The expected completion date of the project is September 2022. As regards the development of the priority action plan, the services of the consultant firm BRL Ingénierie have been enlisted for the elaboration of a strategy for the sustainable development of the water sector in Rodrigues. The consultancy is fully financed by AFD to the tune of 100,000 euros, and the report is expected by mid-2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, the actual water demand for domestic, agricultural and industrial purposes in Rodrigues is estimated at 18,000 meter cube per day, of which the domestic demand stands at 12,000 meter cube per day. Hence, a substantial investment and different projects being undertaken to address the issue of water production and supply in Rodrigues. Mr. Speaker, sir, during the last visit of the Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development to Rodrigues, the issue of mobilizing additional funds to meet the set targets has been lengthily discussed. It was agreed that the Rodrigues Regional Assembly will set up a special purpose vehicle which would have as major responsibility the management of water production in Rodrigues. In fact, in his budget speech last Friday, the Chief Commissioner stated that addressing the water problem is one of the 5 priorities of the Rodrigues Regional Assembly and includes, I quote, l'augmentation de la capacité de production des 5 unités de dessalement de 3250 mètres cubes à 10 000 mètres cubes par jour, la construction de nouveaux réservoirs de 1000 mètres cubes à Montchéry et Coromandel et la mise en place d'un stock de pompes de rechange. Unquote. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Member has mentioned that there has been recent outcries by inhabitants of Petit But and the region nearby in the southeast of the island just recently regarding water problem. I am informed by the island chief executive that the water problem was due to a breakdown of one main borehole at Latanier in January 2021, along with a temporary breakdown of Songe, Pointe Venus, and Cabian Bouteille desalination plants in early March 2021. On receipt of borehole pumps from South Africa in 2 weeks, coupled with the rainfalls during the last 10 days, the water distribution is expected to be back to normal soon. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am confident that all these projects which I have listed reflect the commitment of my government to improve water distribution and access to safe drinking water on a regular basis. Thank you.
Honourable members, that stage I raise a sitting.